So
Mhm.
I was thinking about, the fact that we're still on perfectionism, yet another week, lingering around in perfectionism. Maybe
Until
we'll
we
get it
get it
right.
right. Yeah,
Maybe we'll get it right
exactly.
tonight. Yay. Like, so I want to, get vulnerable here and reveal like some internal dialogue that has been with me for a bit, which was when you know this group started and I got started getting involved, and Alan asked me to co-host and manage the letting people in and things like that. And as my responsibility grew, you know be sitting back and listening to the conversations. And the early days, for everyone who's been with us almost the whole time, there was different topics and conversations and a few different other speakers, and it kind of rotated out who was in the Hollywood squares here. And I would go like, there would be a voice that said in my head, "Oh, sure, I can. I'm good enough to answer the door, right? To take care of the security, but why am I not on the panel, right? Like
Mhm.
I like I'm probably I probably got stuff to offer him. Geez, that Tom guy, you you could throw me in the mix. Like, it can't be any worse than that, right?
If
I
Rutledge,
like
if Rutledge can do it, come on.
yeah. So there was this, and this is the prestige seeking piece of me. I think it's the wanting to fit in, wanting to be of equal, to have some status. And while those thoughts and feelings were true, I also knew that they were based in some level of lack, right? There's some deficit which you know brought up the fact of these feelings in these thoughts, and I was able to see them and kind of, I don't want to say manage them, but address them in a way which, like, oh, hi, hi feelings, you're like, hi thoughts, you're like, you guys again. And I would process that by saying, well, like, Alan's been colleagues with Herb for decades, right? And Tom for decades. Like, you've done work, like, of course he's going to be more comfortable having them as primaries on, in this discussion. And they've got a cadence to get, like, there was the counter which I used to self-talk my way through that. And so didn't mean it went away, but it still meant it had less power. So here's where the perfectionism comes in. And so what would happen occasionally is someone would not be available, and all of a sudden Alan would be like, Tom, why don't you join us tonight? And I'd be like, like, now I got what I wanted, and I better not screw it up, right?
That's right.
And and there's the rub, right? There's the, okay, now what? Can I be genuine, humble, uh, uh, not worry about, say not worry about, but get through the night with sharing some thoughts and on it, not and come out the other side and not critique myself to death over it, like, oh, you should have said this, and
Yeah.
that landed flat, and did I try too hard, Nick? So I got it on both ends, right? And in the scheme of things, I guess how I manage it is, like, I've presented a lot, right? I've been to thousands of meetings and thousands of speaking engagements locally, and some bigger ones here or there. I've done workshops, recovery workshops. I used to do professional training and for my job. Um, Chances are that not everyone, and probably not almost nobody, is hanging on my every word, and that would notice the slip up that I then beat myself up over sometime afterwards. So in reality, like, you know it's okay. There's probably a few little gems in there that have helped maybe a few people, and the rest is kind of out in the ether, and will land where it's going to land. And just again, to that thought of if I treat myself how I would treat someone else, then I'll be okay, right? I
Mhm.
give a lot of leeway to a lot of people, right? I give a lot of grace
Mhm.
to a lot of people. Can I turn around and offer that same grace to myself and in all of my, bumps and missteps. So
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to share about tonight, just to kind of kick things off and acknowledge that even in this group, which has been so good for me and my growth and just being a part of, I can bring Mr. Perfectionist in here and have him mess with my head.
Mhm.
So once again, thanks everybody for showing up week after week and being a part of this. And you know, I'll leave it at that. And Tom or Herb, you can you know chime in for a few minutes before we open up.
Well, I'll just say, it's always somebody else. The grass is always greener in somebody else's head, I guess. But it's like, I mean, I'm always in awe of all the different things that you can do that I can't do, and that we depend on you doing. And by the way, you've always been I know you're not asking for that, but you've always been a great contributor to this stuff. And I'll just share this with you and anybody else who could be helpful. Um, I've been public speaking for, like you said, decades, and it's like I finally got to a place because I would just drive myself crazy with it, but I finally got to a place with the help of a friend of mine, of where I basically decided, and I stick with that pretty well. It's like, uh, I'm not gonna be the one who evaluates my performance at any given time. I'm gonna listen to I'm gonna pay attention to how people respond, what kind of feedback I get from people who listen to me, and I'm gonna believe what they say. Because those of us who have low self-esteem, sometimes we can get really nice reviews, and then we go like, yeah, but that's not really, that's not what they really thought. It's and some of the negative ones are kind of fun. It is one of my favorite reviews from a workshop one time was a guy. There was a what just had one sentence on it. Said he's not as funny as he thinks he is. It's and I was sitting there with the host of the workshop, and I now honestly said, I said, I don't know exactly what that means, but I think I'm exactly as funny as I think I am. I mean, that may not be the funniest thing in the world, but I'm pretty knowledgeable of it. So, but anyway, I just learned I need to listen and sometimes I just need to ask, somebody. Roger's been a great partner for me with that, because he and I kind of identify with some of our insecurity. That there have been some times after these meetings where we kind of touch base, just to just tag up and be sure we're okay. So yeah, get the support you need. I'm glad you're a part of us.
Thanks,
And
Tom.
don't, Mhm. Hey,
Uh,
Herb.
my name's Herb and I'm an alcoholic, and I never realized that I had low self-esteem, but I was always terrified of not fitting in, of
Yeah.
not knowing what to say or how to dress or what to do. And so I made an effort to try to study what other people did or wrote about so that I could, in fact,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
put it on as a mask or a, and it was only after I got sober 5 years and did the steps that when I did the fourth step, I got underneath that and I saw all of the lies that I had believed and all of the behavior that came out of the lies. In other words, I made an effort to look good and I really thought I did, but it was fake.
Mhm,
It was all a lie. It was all a facade. It was all an attempt to overcompensate, but it was never perfection. I wanted to excel. I wanted to be competent. I wanted to be good at what I do. I wanted to be recognized. It was really important for me to be recognized in a positive way. I was equally terrified of being publicly humiliated or criticized, especially by women. And I was really gifted with the sales charism. And here I am, the head of sales, and terrified to speak publicly. I mean, I did, but it was really awkward and always very, very, very difficult. But it was the process of the steps and some therapy that added to it that allowed me to see that what I was doing, that grandiosity, which I didn't ever think was grandiosity, I thought it was an effort to look good. The grandiosity was, in fact, a compensation for a sense of low self-esteem, and that all I had to do was connect to the gifts that I had. And of course, step 6 and 7, the emphasis on humility as a desirable quality of realism was the key that really helped me begin to try to be balanced and undefended, and to still hone my skills and to be better and to improve. And I mean, I'm blessed and driven by that still today. But it's not, I don't believe it's unhealthy. It's like, I just want to improve each day.
Yeah.
I've never really understood perfectionism. That's quite different. And I see it. Half of my, and I've never done a study, but it seems like half of the people in my workshops are perfectionism. And it seems that it comes from some family experience of never measuring up and being criticized and never being good enough, and always, if you got an A, why didn't you get an A plus? That kind of outward conditioning. I'm sure the psychologists on the panel could address it much more with the sophisticated knowledge of research. But it's really, I mean, I think it's an acquired conditioned response to training, actually. And I'm assuming the hope is that with some sort of extinguishing process, that it can be at least mitigated somewhat. But I mean, I'll name it, and I think it's correct. It's neurotic. It's really unhealthy perfectionism, because it's totally, I mean, I do the logic part, not the feeling part. It's totally unhealthy because it's impossible. Perfection is impossible as long as we're material reality. We're imperfect, mutable, changeable, corruptible, and there is no such thing as perfect. But of course, that's the logic part, which doesn't really actually even touch the emotional part of somebody who literally is sabotaged by their compulsion for crossing T's and dotting I's. And so I have no experience in dealing with that in any therapeutic sense. But what I do know is that the steps allowed me to find the truth, and the process of attempting to be more conscious through step 11, and the effort of literally attempting to be sincere in my helping other people has in fact really changed the internal mechanisms for my own sense of personal value.
Yeah. Herb, one thing that I really appreciate about this is the importance of not only going back and kind of identifying the origin of some of this stuff, like family stuff or whatever it happens to be. You know, I give my example is I was the pedestal kid that could do no wrong. So it's like, it wasn't that I was told I was coming up short. I was always told everything I did was wonderful and perfect. And so how could that be a problem? Well, I had no idea now, with hindsight, I had no idea what I would do if I weren't turn on that pedestal. And so that's, and as you can imagine, drinking helped me get off of it quite easily. I would just fall off,
I spent a lot of time trying to build higher pedestals to climb
oh,
on.
that's beautiful. I love it. No, I get that. Exactly. No, it's, yes. And well, it's another addiction. Yeah.
I went through it at work for a period of time where I was trying to move up. This is very modestly, ladder that I was trying to move up, but we had, sure everyone's familiar with a 5-point scale, right? You could get, one being the highest, five being the lowest, and I had what I thought was like just a crackerjack year. Just really like tried to do a lot and get a lot accomplished, and and then you do a self-evaluation, and they're like, and so it came back, and I got a 2, and I'm like I had this great year. What do I have to do to give a 1? And they're like, we don't give out 1s. So it reinforced that resignation that I had as a kid, which is like, why bother trying? No one's paying attention to me anyway. So it was just, even in the workplace, the kind of year-end review stuff can kick in, and you know uh reinforce some of those old stories that I have.
Does someone need to believe in God to successfully overcome addiction? Well, the way I like to think about what the program does, it connects us to who we really are. And what does that mean? Well, there's this incredible force in you and I, this growth force. It's the force that moved us from crawling to walking. You wanted to take those first steps. And when you fell, and you fell a lot of times, you didn't let your failures stop you. You picked yourself up, you learned from it. And how many times did you fail before you walked? You failed as many times as you needed to. You see that force, I call it a biological imperative, a psychological imperative, a spiritual imperative. It's moving you towards wholeness. It's moving you to be what you can be. Just like in the acorn is all the information it needs to become an oak tree. In you is all the information you need to become you. Become a you that can cope with life and to deal with whatever you need to deal with to be okay. And that's what I'll talk about in my new book, The 12 Essential Insights for Emotional Sobriety.